Hello and welcome to Super Turbo 64, the podcast in which two friends get together and shoot the shit about video games. I'm Jason Vandervoort, and once again, I am joined by Jeff Ross.
Hello.
How are you doing today, bud?
I'm doing pretty decently, thank you very much. How are you today?
I'm also doing good, thank you.
Good. So, Jason, right off the bat, I got a question for you.
I'm ready for
Tossing this ball up in the air for you to catch or hit with a baseball bat or a cricket bat or a croquet bat or whatever kind of bat.
My sporting bat of choice.
Yeah. What games you been playing lately, J-Space?
Alrighty, I'm ready to knock it out of the park, bud.
Oh.
Or, what do they call the arena in, like, cricket?
The pitch.
The pitch? Okay. Well, I'm going to knock it out. Whatever it is.
And I could be completely wrong about that. Could be offending millions of cricket fans.
Cricketers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, they're out there. They're listening.
Yeah.
They're writing in in Hindi or whatever.
We just lost a huge chunk of our fan base thanks to your ignorance.
They're probably horse lovers. So sorry, just bringing that back right off the bat. I guess.
Hey, recurring bits, they're a good thing.
What you been playing, Jace?
All right, so I glossed over it a little bit in our Game of the Year episode, but I've been still playing Wintermore Tactics Club.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm fairly far into the game. It's not a terribly long game, but I haven't been able to put an awful lot of time into it. But yeah, it's I'll just go over real quick again. You play as a girl named Alicia and her friends that are in what is basically a D&D club at her school, without it being D&D for legal reasons, I assume. And all of the various clubs at this school are kind of, without their consent, are entered into a snowball fight tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the winner of this tournament gets to keep their club.
Yeah.
And so you kind of get this funny thing of, your club going up against other clubs while also playing D&D, so they're using their D&D experience in snowball fights. It's fun, it's silly, and there's a bunch of really silly other clubs that you go up against.
Okay.
There's a club that is specifically dedicated to the appreciation of new wave music. So you've got a couple of dudes that are dressed up like band members from Devo.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And the main member of the club, her name is Baphomet, and she is just straight up like goth rocker.
Nice.
Yeah. And she just randomly will go on to tirades about how she's going to damn all of your souls to hell.
That's awesome.
It's a good time. It's a fun game. I like it a lot.
That's a fun little concept.
It is.
Reminds me of a certain concept called Till the Bell Rings.
Yes, it is. Oh, man. It is a name I've not heard in a long time.
Yeah, Jason's, they don't talk about it often, but they like to write,
Yep. Till the Bell Rings was one of the first stories that I had written. And it was, basically about a group of kids. I don't know. And it was a in-depth dissection of playground politics.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Absolutely.
It might be something I dig back into one of these days.
Yeah.
The future's unwritten.
That's right.
How about you, bud? What have you been playing?
I've been playing a little game I've never mentioned on the podcast called The Binding of Isaac.
Interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of that game before.
Yeah, it's a group of D&D club members. They play snowball fights with other... Oh, no, that's the wrong game.
Oh, that's right. I'm talking about a much better game.
Perhaps a more well-known game.
Fire, yeah.
No, I've been playing Isaac, my most played game of all time, I'm sure.
Probably.
And I was looking at my trophies last night for a good reason, I guess, because I finally got the 1,000,000% in Afterbirth Plus. Oh, thank you. It's funny, The game actually, well, it trolls you many times throughout the gameplay, but it trolls you in the completion as well because,
Sure.
when you get like 1,001%, it says like nerd or something like that. But when you get 1,000,000%, it just says stop, just stop. And then at the same time, though, you go back to your file selection and it says 2 more save files to go. So, I
What's
just.
your game, Edmund McMillan?
Yeah, that's right. Like, do you want me to stop or do you want me to continue forever? Because I'll continue forever. I'll do it, man.
Especially because there's more expansions coming out,
That's
which
right.
is
One final expansion,
one final
Repentance.
expansion. Yeah, which is, from what I understand, that's kind of what has
That's kind of rekindled my playing this
exactly.
game again.
I mean, it comes and goes. You'll go through phases of playing Isaac a lot, and then maybe not so much. So.
Yeah, and I wanted to get that trophy because again, it's going to be more difficult once the new stuff comes out.
Sure.
Because I'll have to get more to make the completion and all that.
Yep.
I wonder what they're going to call it. 1,000,000,000%.
Do you know what this new expansion is supposed to add?
It's going to. They say it. Legends have it that it adds a sequel's worth of new content.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
That's a
so
lot.
it adds. They haven't talked numbers yet in terms of items and bosses, but they have said that it is pretty much porting in Anti-Birth, which was itself an expansion made by the fan community.
Yeah, right.
So what it does is it splits off, like, there's a mid-game, even though there's a hard mode in the game, now it's sort of like there's an easy path and a hard path, is what they add in Repentance. So, they, instead of like just going down the boss hole, you can spend health to go the hard path, and then you have to spend bombs or something. You have to just to keep going down the path, and they reward you by giving you choices of items instead of like one item.
Now, you said Afterbirth was kind of a fan game?
Anti-Birth. It is very closely named, and that's
yeah,
unfortunate, but that's the way it goes.
Right. Now, had you had the opportunity to play that?
I have played Anti-Birth like one time.
Right.
And
because it's a fan game, you wouldn't really have the opportunity to play it on, say, your PlayStation or your Switch or whatnot.
Right, and that's how I played the game most of the time, is Switch, PlayStation, 3DS, and but then I bought all the trappings for laptop, and then I tried it, and my laptop was so crappy that it couldn't run Anti-Birth. So then I got my PC this summer, and yet I already knew Repentance was coming, so I'm like, I could just wait until Repentance comes out. But I couldn't help myself, and I played a round of Anti-Birth, and I was like, oh, this is cool.
Right, exactly.
But it did teach me that I need to have a certain amount of completion in order to unlock the hard path. So next, now that I've finished off my PlayStation file, I'm going to try and get a complete file on PC in the next couple months. And it won't be totally complete because that would be impossible.
Right. So, so what you're saying is basically I will never see you play Isaac on your PlayStation again.
Not for a while. Not until like the when it comes out on PS4.
Right.
It's going to come out.
Oh, absolutely, eventually.
Yeah, so that whole tirade, rant, whatever you want to call it, about the monologue is the best word, probably.
I like that.
About that could be ended with "he nerded," I have one more item to collect. Anyway,
Adjusts glasses.
And I say that in large part to segue into our topic today.
Ooh, look at you go.
That's right, Jason. It's time we got down to the brass tacks. The dirty 30. I say that because I turned 30 recently.
Yeah.
But it's coming to a head here. What I'm trying to say is our topic for today is growing out of video games.
Yeah, probably the would you say it's maybe the heaviest topic we've discussed on the podcast?
Probably the most like outwardly I'll just say yes.
Yeah, it seems like it would be.
Yeah.
The idea for this episode came to me, oh gosh, several months ago. I had heard it was basically kind of something that I had heard someone talk about in passing,
Oh, sure.
you know?
Yeah, man, I don't play games as much anymore. I guess I'm just screwing out of it.
Exactly, yeah. And I think, I wish I could remember who it was, but I feel like it was maybe someone that that maybe you and I went to school with and, kind of kept in slight touch, like those friends that you kind of had in high school, and you're those acquaintances
Yeah.
afterwards,
Well, if they're giving up on video games now,
They're no friend of mine.
That's right. They're blood traders.
Yep, blood traders. And they should be punished as such.
Oh, sure.
And so, like, I've thought about that concept before,
Yeah.
but I've never really given it too much thought.
Sure.
But the idea that basically what it came down to is, video games have had this kind of association with younger people
Mm-hmm.
for most of the time that they've been out. And I mean, video games are a younger medium
Yeah.
than a lot of others.
Games are a young man's game.
Sure. And, they came out and were marketed like exclusively to kids,
Yeah.
in the very early days.
Right. And at the same time, you get like those arcades, because the arcades were more for everyone.
Exactly.
I think. Like you got, but once consoles and like Ataris and stuff were launched,
Right.
it was like all the commercials and stuff were for little kids hanging out on the joystick.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I felt like there's always been this connotation with games being for kids.
Little babies.
Exactly. And there's two other mediums that I can say, at least in my kind of opinion, that I can say also kind of have that connotation.
Yeah.
And that's animation
Yep.
and comic books.
Yep.
But like it doesn't take very long for someone to realize that no, there are works in all three of those mediums that, are definitely not for kids.
No, that's right. Plenty of games, plenty of comics, plenty of anime are for.
What were you glaring there for, Jeff?
Oh no, I love anime. I love Dragon Ball Z, and that's it. But yeah, no, like V for Vendetta, about this, anarchist terrorist versus a cop in a corrupt system. That's or The Watchmen,
Yeah. Basically anything Alan Moore
Yeah.
had written.
That's those aren't for little babies.
Yeah.
Those are for big, strong adult men and women and anything in between.
this is going to be kind of a weird segue, but I remember like the first time that I was exposed to the idea of animation not being just for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when that live action movie of Spawn came out in the mid-90s?
No.
Okay, I don't blame you for not remembering.
Yeah, I probably shut it off of my brain.
Probably all the better.
Mm-hmm.
But, I saw it
Yeah.
and, I was like, this is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that, I happened to see at our local video rentals place a animated Spawn movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was HBO that had been
Yeah.
doing this, had been animating Spawn. And I was just like, cool, it's a cartoon. I should be able to watch this.
Yeah.
No.
It was-
I made it like maybe a half hour to an hour in, and I was very, very scared.
Oh, poor little Jason.
I know. Oh, gosh. Yeah, I still remember that.
I cannot remember my first animation geared towards general adult audiences. Probably like, well, I suppose I started realizing that they had cartoons for adults with like Family Guy and stuff like that. South Park.
Yes.
But I can't remember like a serious one until
Right.
like the Batman movies or something.
Yeah.
Which them, tying into the comic stuff, like people think superheroes in general are for kids, and yet, we got these huge Dark Knight movies. The Robert Pattinson Batman movie trailer looks like it's only for the most hardened, grizzled veterans of street combat.
Which is us, obviously.
Oh, yeah. I'm too scared to watch it, Jason.
Yeah.
I got scared when I was 14 and watched Batman Begins the first time, and only at the scene where the Scarecrow throws on the mask when talking to Falcone.
That's a good scene.
Yeah, he like throws it on, and then the jump scare.
Yeah,
of,
that change in the cinematic filter.
Yeah, but that's not animation.
But still. But yeah, that's the thing where it's just, because Batman, being a superhero,
Yeah.
You have this expectation that all Batman stories are going to be suitable for children.
Yeah.
Which they are not.
Right.
Like, don't let your 8-year-old child read The Killing Joke. That's a bad idea.
It is utterly bizarre to think that 1966 Batman Adam West and in like 2005 Christian Bale Batman are the same character.
Yeah, right.
And
that's part of a thing, where you have a character that has survived, for decades now. Yeah. I mean, just think about how many iterations they've had for characters like Robin Hood.
Mm-hmm. 2.
No. 2 that you can at least think of off the top of your head.
I just say that because you got the Fox Robin Hood.
Yeah, the Disney one, yep.
And then I suppose
there was that Russell Crowe one.
Exactly. You got either serious Robin Hood or
Men in Tights Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think with animation and with comics, they were actually like created originally with children in mind. Except, again, this is just me pulling the most barest bits of trivia out of thin air that I can remember. Like, some of the earliest black and white films were cartoons, and those were for everyone,
Right, exactly.
So, I don't know.
It's just with, like, the kind of thing, especially with maybe companies like Disney, who, really created this idea of what animation was.
Right.
And who it was marketed towards.
Yeah.
And, and to just so we can kind of shift slightly, to gaming, which is, of course, kind of the biggest focus that we've got.
I forgot about video games.
Yeah. Like you said, when you were saying with the home console market and the way that they were marketed at the time, it was definitely gave off the impression that it was for kids.
Yeah.
So most games, were rated like E for everyone.
That was before ESRB.
Exactly. Yeah. And the ESRB was really only kind of founded because of games like Mortal Kombat. Yeah, exactly. And
2 guys agreeing with each other for an hour.
Exactly. But, with Mortal Kombat, those were games that both you and I played, even
as
though
children, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And it's, Mortal Kombat's gore is obscenely cartoony.
Sure.
And it's really kind of hard to take it seriously.
And at least in hindsight, I mean, I suppose the actual, like, compared to nowadays, it's cartoony, and maybe like what they do, like the fact that Melina just like swallows someone whole by sucking them in and then spitting out the bones, that's cartoonish. But if you think about how it's like FMV characters in like an arcade, can you imagine like seeing like a realistic human being for the first time, and what do they decide to do with it is just like chop off their head,
slice the head off, or set them completely on fire.
Holy crap.
Yeah. But then Mortal Kombat, it's weird because, Mortal Kombat probably being the first example that I can think of, for a game that is not necessarily rated for everyone, we'll say, where the games themselves, have almost always kind of pushed the envelope of what they can depict,
Yeah.
you know. But Mortal Kombat also had an animated kids show
True.
and also had a PG-13 live action movie,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So again, it's just like you had this thing of how, like, who was this marketed towards?
Yeah. We know that you're not supposed to be playing these games, but you are.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. That's pretty silly, but
it is.
and when we were growing up with these games, were you always allowed by your parents to play like rated M games and stuff like that, or did you have to like sneak over to the neighbor's house and play Conker's Bad Fur Day? Like, oh, I don't know, me, you know?
I never really had anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the only game that I remember as a kid that had really any kind of opposition from my parents playing was Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
And that's largely because Mortal Kombat, of course, had the reputation,
Yeah.
you know? But just like most of the other games that I would have had access to, whether it be from renting or whatever, excuse me, those games that were maybe rated for more mature audiences, I wasn't really interested in, you know? And
As a child, you were a child at heart.
I was, absolutely. And like, so I didn't really ever play games like Resident Evil until Resident Evil 4, which came out in the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
You know? So I never got to play those early horror games,
Right.
and I never got to play things like Duke Nukem or Doom, you know, which were a little bit more also geared towards more mature audiences. The only person that I knew growing up who played things like Doom or Duke Nukem was our friend Cody.
Sure.
And he lived, we lived on opposite sides of a fence.
Yeah.
And so I would just kind of go around or hop the fence sometimes and we'd play games together. And, but even then, I very rarely ever saw, you know, those games. Most of the stuff that we played was, I don't know, Pokemon.
Yeah.
Or if we played a shooter, it was maybe no more adult than GoldenEye,
Sure.
you know?
I
really
yeah.
all my M-rated games that I dug into really didn't even start happening until almost the PS3,
Sure.
you know? Because those were, now it's like the M-rated games are almost like pretty much every
Every major
big
franchise.
budget, yeah, like AAA game is rated M.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lot harder to find really good quality games that are
Tier lower.
yeah. Exactly.
I had a friend that was about 4 years older than me, 5 years older, who had like Duke Nukem and all that and Diablo. Like I was a cowardly child. Allow me to paint you a picture. A little pudgy boy standing in a wintry field. The city no, I'm not going to say that. But I will say is that my friend who was older had Duke Nukem.
Yeah.
And he like showed me, check this out. And then he like, there's like a naked girl on the camera or whatever. And,
Oh, right.
And I'm like, this is a video, like mind blowing. Just
Right.
the fact that it even existed, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, he also showed me Mortal Kombat. And I think I've even mentioned on... No, I think this might have actually been in a scrapped hidden episode that'll never see the light of day. But he showed me a fatality.
Oh,
and
sure.
I was playing as Raiden, my favorite character.
Yep.
Reptile stuck his old tongue out and ate Raiden's head. And I rushed out of the camper that we were playing in, and I was like fighting back tears because I'm like, he killed my character, and I'll never get to play him again because my character's dead now.
Right.
And then, after I get back inside, I'm like, oh, he's still on the menu. Okay.
But for those couple of minutes, you were distraught.
Yeah, my concept of death was included video games, I guess. Even though I've seen Mario die 1,000 times.
And Yoshi even more.
You gotta do what you gotta do. I'm wearing a Yoshi main spotted hat right now.
You are.
But I would sacrifice 1,000 Yoshis to save a single Mario.
Or Peach.
Peach who?
No, Peach, not Pichu. You're thinking about a completely different game.
And yet, no, like the most adult game I've ever played probably is Conker's Bad Fur Day. Would you agree with that, Jason? You've played the game. Is that the most adult game you've ever played? I'm holding you already have a mic, so there's nothing to hold in front of your face.
I don't know. Like I don't
Well,
think...
you never played the single player, I guess.
I played a little bit of it.
Okay.
And I view Conker to me it's about as adult as
like South Park or Family
yeah,
Guy or
exactly.
something.
Yeah, it's the stuff that it talks about and the level of humor.
It's definitely for adults.
Yeah, but at the
the
same...
level of humor is for man-children.
Yeah, or I'd say like teenagers.
Yeah.
And there comes a point where after a while, I mean, say if I played through Conker's Bad Fur Day today,
Yeah.
And played through the single player story mode, I don't really think any of the humor would really
Make you chuckle.
No, I mean maybe outside of a few pop culture references because I know
they have like the Matrix and
Yeah.
Alien in there.
Yeah, so I mean I'd probably get some laughs out of that, but the humor just in general. And I mean, same with Mortal Kombat. The gore and some of the humor involved in it is like kind of cartoony now.
Yeah.
But where Mortal Kombat is, for the most part now, Mortal Kombat's tone is a little more in sync with itself.
Yeah.
I feel. It realizes that the gore is comical.
Right.
Whereas maybe it didn't have that concept right away.
Yeah. Yeah, at first, it was... I don't know. They've always had the ball punch. Oh my god, I just did a Trump hand gesture. Ah! This is my last recording. I'm impeaching myself.
Someone has to.
Yeah. I respectfully resign from this podcast. Anyhow. Wow. I took the words out of my own brain.
You derailed your own Trump train.
Look, I'm suffering. Can't you tell I'm suffering right now?
Exactly, which is why I'm making light of it.
I thought you were kicking me while I'm down.
Oh, no.
This is the worst I've ever felt. So, we have established, I think, that video games can be for adults.
Exactly.
They have ever since Mortal Kombat, and now they have more, even more extreme horror or like...
Absolutely.
The
gore and horror that was introduced in those games, kind of in the N64 and PlayStation 1 era, it's... There's just no comparison between them anymore. But,
right.
When you ask me about what was the most adult game I've ever played, I guess I wouldn't think about it in the terms of, how crude the language was or how much blood there was.
Yeah.
But I would think mainly, the game that presents the most... It's kind of difficult. Like, what asks the most difficult questions of you, maybe?
And that's the thing I've realized in the past 30 seconds is that, like, there are games that are so adult, so to speak, that they would be boring for children,
Yeah.
A game that you're going to talk about later, or even any of those walking simulators, are like, those are adult because if you give them to a kid, they're like...
This is boring.
Exactly.
Yeah, like a perfect example. of a game that I feel handles it really well is a game called Firewatch.
Yeah.
In Firewatch, you play as a guy who he has basically run away from his life
Yep.
to take on a job
Mm-hmm.
as basically a fire lookout.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he's communicating with another lady through walkie-talkie.
Yep. Somebody
And-
who he can't actually see. She's like
Exactly.
miles away. But,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And your journey through that game, like you are learning about what your character has been going through,
Mm-hmm.
the life that they've run away from. And at the
Yeah.
end of, not to really spoil it, the game, but it's like
Right.
as you are reaching the end of it, your character is realizing, there's stuff that I like
Have to
there's,
deal with.
Yeah, there's mistakes that I made. There's stuff that I need to do, and there are tangible consequences for the stuff that happens throughout that game.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of walking sims,
Mm-hmm.
that use that, or other games that are really games that have a lot of those branching paths and whatnot, like Life is Strange.
Yeah.
Life is Strange deals with some heavy adult stuff,
Yeah.
and it does so without, having blood splattering everywhere.
Oh, you didn't see that scene?
Oh, no! Or like really crude bathroom humor throughout the whole time.
There are bathrooms.
There are bathrooms,
They probably crack jokes inside.
I'm sure, but you know what I mean.
I'm sorry, I'm being deliberately obtuse.
Yeah.
To quote Comedy Bang Bang. Yeah. Yeah. So we have established there are types of adult games.
Mhm.
You got your boring walking sims. I say boring because they are boring, and I say, no, I like them. I like Firewatch quite a bit. I like other ones such as Firewatch, and Firewatch. But there's also games like Conker's Bad Fur Day, where I'm, where things happen that you can't say on podcast. But, you just can't say that on TV.
Apparently not.
Yeah. But, and yet, despite there being adult games, and don't take that the wrong way,
Hi-yo.
there is certainly another type of adult game.
That we're not going to talk about.
No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Mortal Kombat 11 and not... Nope,
No,
not
let's
going
say
there.
you were briefly going to try and come up with a title for a
I was
ridiculously
gonna
adult-sounding game.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Mortal, like what's Fornication 11. There we go.
Mortal Fornication 11.
Never played it. It's me neither.
Yeah.
But so despite there being adult games, we hear a lot about the concept of growing out of games. People who are like I said earlier, I haven't been playing games so much lately. Maybe I'm just growing out of them. Do you think what I think?
We'll find out. We'll find out just how much we agree.
a lot of that is because there's a stigma about nerds. The stigma about being a gamer. I've got examples here from my own experience. Allow me to rustle some papers.
That sounded very professional right there.
Good. I remember the year was 2010, and I waited another year, and the year was 2011, and I was in college, and the teacher asked, can you list some things to describe yourself? Like, mother, father, sister, brother, firefighter, Firewatch player, horse lover. And I couldn't think of, I was like, brother, son, musician, gamer? I called myself a gamer for literally the first time because that phrase was new.
Right.
And our friend Will Antela was sitting next to me, and he read my things, and he's like, gamer. I'm a gamer. He did like this weird little like physical comedy of like, yeah, I'm a gamer. I'm a gamer. And I'm like, haha, yeah, you're right, Will, that is pretty stupid. Yeah,
Filled with shame.
I feel terrible.
That does sound like Will.
Yeah.
Just like, you know,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to see, but just the motions that Jeff was making just seemed very much like that old friend of ours.
Yeah, I wonder what he's up to these days.
I do too.
So for years I refused to call myself a gamer since.
Sure.
And I got something from even just like a few months ago.
Really?
My sister started dating a new guy, and he was like, "I'm really sorry, but I play video games."
Wow.
Yeah. He was like,
I didn't know how long we had to be in the relationship before I could tell you, but I have a PlayStation 4. I'm sorry. It's plugged into the TV. I play it on occasion. Just don't hate me for being a gamer.
Exactly. He, in fact, by some rigorous standards that I will not adhere to, he was not a gamer in the sense that he wasn't up to date with all the latest games. He wasn't, snorting game fuel. This guy was like playing the first Dragon Age on his computer, and he owned a Wii U, I think.
Okay.
And could you imagine going to like a PAX or something and being like, "Yeah, I'm a gamer. I own a Wii U. That's it." And I mean, like, obviously, people would probably accept you because I believe, and that's actually, oh no.
It's like he's doing it again.
The Trump hands. I'm doing the okay sign with
Exactly.
both hands.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, the gaming community. I was gonna like compose, like,
Now it looks like you're
conduct.
composing. Yes.
Yeah, the gaming community is a welcoming one, and yet it also has a stereotype of not being. And I think there is a lot of gatekeeping in gaming.
For sure.
But
Every community has some level of gatekeeping because, with community you have people that, you feel connected to, and it just kind of goes into this whole thing of, you feeling that your community is yours and, not wanting everyone to be part of it.
And that's why I said that I wouldn't hold those rigorous standards to that
Sure.
boyfriend of my sister's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be a gatekeeper. And in fact, Jason, you could be gatekeeped out of being a gamer because you don't have a gaming PC.
I do. Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
You don't even have a gaming PC? What do you play, console?
Exactly.
Oh, wow, 30 FPS. Very cool. I can do, a terrible facsimile of what a gamer can be because, damn it. Sorry, Will, but I am a gamer. I'm a gamer.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Just, I'm really glad that we were able to reach that consensus.
My name is Jeff Ross, and I'm a gamer.
Hi, Jeff.
Gaming addiction is a real thing.
That is absolutely true. But,
Yeah, but being a gamer is not necessarily an addiction. Another piece of stigma
correct.
that every gamer is addicted to their hobby.
Yes.
I can name at least one person sitting at this very table that's not addicted to video games. And that actually, lately I have been playing less.
Sure.
And that coincides with this whole growing out of games. Like every time I think some of us experience like playing games less than they usually do, they're like, "Am I growing out of it? Was my mom right?"
Yeah.
You'll grow out of it one day, Jeff.
Yeah.
She had a beautiful voice. One day you're gonna hate video games. No, every time I got a new console or like would debate my parents like the
merits of getting a new
merits
console.
of getting a new console.
Yeah.
They're like, well, you're gonna have to sell your old one, and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
The old games are good, but the new ones are better. And they're like, well, if the new one, I'm like,
Yeah, well, because I think they've got this connection that the PlayStation 2, is better in every conceivable way than the PlayStation 1, and then if you have a PlayStation 2, you don't need a PlayStation 1.
in that exact scenario, that's true because it's backwards compatible.
Well, there's but you know what I mean, where it's like they've got this idea that
Yeah.
once you have one, you don't need the other. I think they probably equate it more to like well, I've been driving this car for several years. It's time to
Yeah.
upgrade to a new car and sell my old one.
right.
Or like you don't have many people who still have a VCR when they could have a DVD player
Mm-hmm.
or a Blu-ray player,
I would try to tell my parents that it was more like reading a book. I always made that analogy because they
It's a
both
good
liked to
analogy.
read. I was like, actually, Link to the Past is like a sequel, and you've read sequels,
Ooh,
And, but they don't give a shit.
right. You've read sequels, Dad.
Yeah.
And your dad's like, my son's flawless logic has shifted my opinion.
Objection.
Yeah, basically.
But no, for them it was about the bottom dollar, which of course
Absolutely.
makes total complete
It does,
sense.
yeah. It's a very, very easy to understand reason.
Yeah, and for me it was all about the newest game.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know, but I always felt like my parents were trying to, especially my mom. She was always trying to convince me that one day I was going to grow out of games.
Yeah,
One
right.
day I would sell all my video games because I was
Sure.
going to reach a magical age.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, video games are toys, even for,
Sure.
again, not to be confused with adult toys. But they are toys for everyone of all ages.
Sure. Yeah, and I think there was maybe this expectation where it's just like, I'm 30. Time to sell my video games and invest in the stock market. But I definitely feel, maybe people who haven't kind of kept an eye or, have seen basically essentially the growing up that games themselves have gone through.
Mm-hmm.
I think about, and I've mentioned it, a few times here on the podcast before, but, when my dad is here and he will see some of the games that I play now, it's funny because, we mentioned Firewatch earlier on in the episode. And so he was watching
It's the only game I play.
a little bit of me playing Firewatch.
Mm-hmm.
And, still his memories of the games that I've played, he remembers me playing Spyro
Mm-hmm.
or Harvest Moon,
Mm-hmm.
And so him watching me play Firewatch, it's a difficult thing for him to kind of wrap his brain around. It's just like,
Yeah.
this is a game?
Yeah. Honestly, every time my dad has seen me play a first-person game, he's been like, "Where's your character?"
That's funny.
Anyway, go on, Jason. Go on, you can do it.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't think I actually had the same kind of thing for me when I was
Sure.
growing up. What's interesting is, when I was a teenager, my mom bought a PS2 for herself
Oh.
so she could play the Tomb Raider games.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And, my dad, he played some games
Mm-hmm.
with me when I was younger, but, never really, I don't know.
In fact, you've actually just illuminated a piece of hypocrisy I haven't considered in a long time. In that, before I was born, my parents owned a Nintendo
Sure.
entertainment system,
Right.
and at no point, and they were older than me now, or
Yeah.
my dad was at least,
Right.
and my mom.
Yeah.
It's close,
Right.
but
And
yeah.
But yeah, I think, he had played them with me.
Mhm.
He never really had much desire to maybe get his own console.
Yeah.
But man, so for a little bit of just extra insight, my dad is a bit of a snowbird, and so he has been living in California right now. And, we're still very much in the grips of the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
And so he's been basically trapped at home
Yeah.
for several months. And in California, they have a lot of really strict guidelines on what's going on. So many places are closed. And so my dad doesn't have an awful lot to do. So if my dad had started gaming, he'd probably have a lot more stuff to do right now.
Is your dad a reader?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of a reader. Mainly nonfiction and a lot of, articles stuff.
Oh, sure.
Him being a big news buff and all.
Yeah, that's right.
But I don't think neither of my parents really ever had this thing for me of this expectation or this thing saying that I would eventually grow out of them.
Sure.
I think both of them, especially my dad, I think he, because he's seen more of the games that I've played and seen more of what they can be like, I think he has understood the idea that they are an all ages thing. And he also understands that, people of all ages play them. So I think for the most part, the people that I've seen who have said that they are, essentially growing out of games or who are playing them less than they used to, it's not because there's, an absence of material that they can click with, but it's because there's all of this other stuff going on in their life.
Yeah.
That, makes it harder for you to be able to sit down and play. Because plenty of games now, games definitely in general are longer now than they were when we were kids.
Yeah.
A game that, a AAA game, maybe 10, 15 years ago, let's say took you 15-ish hours to complete, right? Now, a AAA game, 30 hours is almost minimum.
Yeah.
And especially since the big AAA games, for the most part now, are these really big, sprawling open worlds that are packed to the brim with side stuff. Developers have this thing where they want to basically say, hey, you're getting your money's worth out of this.
Right. Please do not sell this secondhand.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, I think for myself, recently, another game that I've played and actually just finished recently is Trails of Cold Steel 4.
Yeah.
And most people who have played JRPGs know that as a general rule, they tend to be on the longer side.
Right.
And I mean, I think by the time the credits rolled for me in Trails 4, I would say I had put over 80 hours.
Okay.
Into the game.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. And part of that is, it's definitely a very, very long game. But the game came out in late October.
Okay.
And granted, I haven't played it, every day.
Sure.
But it's taken me quite a while to beat it.
Yeah.
And I'm still going through Yakuza Like a Dragon. That came out in November. I've maybe put about 50-ish hours into that.
Sure.
And so the games just have a lot of stuff in them.
See, what you got to do is play indie games that last 40 minutes and then play that 2,000 times.
Oh.
And that way you can stop at any time, but you don't.
Fascinating. And I have been playing some more indies.
Yeah.
But, I'm just saying, some of the really, really big games.
Yeah.
These are the things. And so I feel like a lot of people who, maybe used to play more games, maybe when they were kids, teenagers, even going into their early adult years, don't play them as much now.
Right.
Because of all of the other stuff that is going on around them that makes carving out that time for games all the more difficult.
If there are any single ladies out there looking to start a family, looking for a single man such as myself, keep looking. Because I want to play games and I don't want to be interrupted by some person just out there. Hey, Jeff, do you want to go on a date tonight? I
No.
told you I have to play Isaac 7 more times tonight because Repentance is coming out in March. So, this hypothetical situation has been brought to you by Pure Fantasies. Yeah, Pure
Wow.
Fantasies, where your dreams may never come true.
I was not prepared for that.
Um,
But yeah, I mean, there's so many, people. I definitely feel as though, in regards to both Trails and Yakuza, say if I was still a teenager or maybe in my very early 20s, I still had maybe a little bit more free time, and I probably would have made it through those games quicker,
sure.
And it's just, I feel definitely now, just, your attention is just, divided amongst more things now.
That's right.
And I don't feel that detracts any, from loving video games, because they
Right.
still are. At the end of the day, video games are still my favorite medium for storytelling.
Sure.
And so, and even though I'm definitely busier now than I was, I still, try to find the time to play them and to enjoy them. And I've still got, there's still a big pile of unfinished games in my room right now.
Yeah.
And I'll get to
Same.
them eventually.
It's I've been thinking a lot about this whole, growing out of it stuff, because the last couple of months I've been playing games a lot less, and in
Sure.
fact, ever since this summer, ever since the spring, really, I've just been playing games less, and it's really more to do with, the changes in your own life or your own mood, for me
Absolutely.
at least, and lately, my mood has been I don't want to play a long game, and
Right. It's an investment.
yeah, and so The Last of Us 2 took me forever,
Right.
and then Ghost of Tsushima took me a while just to start,
Sure.
because I was like, oh, it's an open world game, and it's a big honker. What's that, Jason? It took you how many hours? But eventually I started, and then it was fun enough that I played it a lot.
Right.
But I'm thinking about Cyberpunk, because that's right, I wrote it down in big old letters here.
I see that.
Cyberpunk 2077 is not a perfect game. I would like to wait, or I would like to snap my fingers. Oh, I just did. And, have the game be perfect now, rather than wait for another couple months for the patches and whatnot.
Yeah.
But, it seems like every time I play it, I'm dragging myself to play it. Part of it is it's a long game. I assume it's not that long, according to some of my friends. It's an imperfect game because of the freaking glitches,
Sure.
and it's just like, I don't know. I'm not into the. I don't know. I just can't. I can't do it, man. I can't. Okay, sorry. You can edit that out. Just kidding.
But I refuse to. So would you just say that kind of your interests in games have changed?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
And that's why roguelikes are the perfect genre for me, because
Yeah.
I can play for half an hour and be like, I've died 19 times in Spelunky.
That sounds accurate.
Yeah. Or whatever, whatever game. But the with Cyberpunk, though, I did one of the the first big main mission that changes the game, and it establishes what's going to be happening throughout the rest of the game. I'm
Okay.
like, this is so cool. It's very compelling with a great story device, and yet I haven't played it again
Sure.
for a couple weeks.
Okay.
Or maybe I have played it once since then, but I did a side quest, and now I haven't played it again. But I don't know, man. It's just stuff changes.
Yeah, my tastes for games have fluctuated a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I was really into one of the biggest things that I kind of had encountered with my first example of maybe that I was growing out of games in a way
Yeah.
was I have been a lifelong fan of the Pokemon games.
Mm-hmm.
Just I have played all of the core mainline games. Some
Yeah.
of them I've played through multiple times.
Right.
But the first time that I wasn't able to fully go through the main story of a Pokemon game
Mm-hmm.
would have been in Pokemon Moon.
Sure.
And it's been a while, and I don't exactly remember all of the reasons at play as to why I did that.
Mm-hmm.
But, I do remember feeling that I was, this is the first time that I haven't been able to beat a Pokemon game, and I
Yeah.
wasn't invested enough in it to see it through to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, have I grown out of playing Pokemon games?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a tinge of sadness to that,
Sure.
because just the games I have loved them so much,
Mm-hmm.
since I was a kid. And so when Pokemon's Sword and Shield came out, I got Sword, and I was really, really curious. I was thinking, okay, you didn't finish Moon.
Mm-hmm.
If Pokemon Sword doesn't hold on to your attention, then maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe, then Pokemon can just be, this thing that it just encapsulates the kind of games that you liked when you were a kid.
Yeah.
I did play through all of Pokemon Sword, and
Okay.
I did really enjoy it.
Okay.
I just felt, in thinking back now, I just probably was feeling, playing different kinds of games.
Yeah.
In I'd say in maybe the last I don't know, maybe 5 years or so, I definitely have gotten this kind of renewed love of the RPG and especially JRPG genre,
Mm-hmm.
and which I can probably really connect that to Persona.
Yeah.
Just and ever since then, ever since like I love Persona 5 so much.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone through just playing so many games
Yeah.
because of it. And I don't know. It's been nice to be able to dig into those kind of games again, because I don't know. I gained just so much enjoyment out of it. And with the whole thing about maybe thinking that I wasn't going to enjoy Pokemon as much, I remember having this similar feeling when Kingdom Hearts 3 was coming out. Kingdom Hearts was another series that I absolutely loved when I was a kid. And most people who have any idea of what goes on in the Kingdom Hearts games, Kingdom Hearts 3 for a long time had basically been almost kind of a joke. That
Yeah.
it's just like, it'll come out eventually, but
Mhm.
there's probably 3 or 4 more spin-offs that we're going to cram in beforehand.
Right.
And so I had kind of dropped off and hadn't played Kingdom Hearts for a while. But then when Kingdom Hearts 3 was coming out, I was just thinking, okay, let's see if we can do this. And I was worried that, that I would not be able to be invested in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought, hey, maybe I've grown out of this.
Yeah.
But I was able to really enjoy it.
Okay. Going back to the JRPG thing for a second, it dawns on me that might be the critical singular genre most opposite to my tastes. And I was wondering if roguelites are the same for you, Jason. Are they opposite to your tastes? Because a JRPG, while you're thinking about it, is like, first off, anime, which, has its own problems, perhaps. For me. Again, only for this idiot. And second, they're slow. They are a lot slower than most Western games. RPGs are slower than most other types of games. That combination where you got, you're just clicking through text. Perhaps they're voice acted. And you're just, because I started Fire Emblem the other day. Exciting for some. I got through about 20 minutes.
Okay.
And I'm like, I am literally going to go take a nap. I turned it off and took a nap, and I didn't wake up and play it. In fact, I haven't woken up yet. But it's, and then you have I think there's something in my brain that just really likes reaction times in video games and being able to function actively like an action game.
Yeah.
And so like a JRPG that has like real-time combat would probably be more fun for me, but I do also like tactics and strategy. I'm like a fan of chess, for example. And Fire Emblem is like, what if we turned, Stratego into a video game? Not really. So Stratego takes about half an hour.
Right.
Fire Emblem takes 50 hours, I guess. I don't know. How long did it take you, J-Space?
I'd say my first run was around the 40-hour mark. I've done 2 runs of 3 houses.
Damn, 40 hours. So if I play 8 hours a day for 5 days,
It'd be just like going to work.
Exactly.
I have to go do the old 9 to 5. I got my tie and my briefcase. My Switch is in my briefcase. I'm going to sit at my desk and play Fire Emblem.
That's right. If I do a 40-hour work week of playing Fire Emblem, I will be a big old nerd. That's what's going to happen. But no, I'm sorry. I keep bringing up the nerd thing because I just think of the stigma with growing out of games being tied in with that. People are like, they're afraid of being an outcast in society sometimes, and nerds are less of that now than they used to be.
Nerd culture
for sure.
is the biggest and most connected to pop culture that it has ever been.
Yeah.
But there's still a thing where, people who are definitely on the nerdier side of things, they, I don't know, still kind of have this, I don't know, dismissive and kind of humorous connection to them, I suppose. But, yeah. I think, we were talking about this before we started recording. We were kind of thinking about, how nerd culture and how gamers are perceived by people in general. And we were kind of like, I don't know why I have always remembered this, but there was one time, after Jeff and I graduated, we kind of, we had that thing that a lot of people do when they realize that comics have a little bit more to offer them than we first thought when we were kids.
Sure.
So we kind of had this renewed interest in comic books.
Yeah.
And so we went to our local comic book store, I don't know, once a month or something to kind of pick up a couple of single issues of few ongoing stories. And Jeff told me that, one time that he was going to pick me up and we were going to go up and to our comic book store. And so he told his dad that
I was leaving the house.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I was at that time stopping by for whatever reason. Go ahead, Jason.
Yep. And so, Jeff tells his dad that, okay, hey, Jason and I are going to make a run and go to the comic book store. And his dad goes, well, here, you can probably do the impersonation better than I could.
Say hi to Sheldon for me.
Yeah. And it's like, so for those of you who may not know, Sheldon would be a character on the show Big Bang Theory, which is, a sitcom that,
everyone knows the Big Bang Theory.
Everyone knows the Big Bang Theory. Yeah. And it's, it's the sitcom that has probably created the biggest impression about what nerds are for like the general public. Because even with my parents, if I, for whatever reason, am bringing up, I don't know, some nerdier topic or something around my mom, every once in a while, she'll be like, oh, God, that sounds just like something off the Big Bang Theory. Which, yeah, thank you.
I just hit my head on the freaking microphone
Exactly,
stand
and it's just...
It's like, yeah, Mom, me and my friend... I'm just saying what you might have said. Me and my friends are setting up a stand at our local comic book convention for video games, and we're going to host,
a tournament.
a big old tournament. Oh, Jason, you and your nerds.
Yeah, my mom is voiced by Danny DeVito.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's just... so there's this kind of... I feel like people have this perception of what, nerdier people are like.
Yeah.
And I feel Big Bang Theory is largely responsible for it.
Yeah.
Just one of the reasons that I don't like the show.
It's. I mean, the format is outdated, in my opinion. The three camera sitcom or whatever. It's just like. I'm at the same time, do whatever you want. It's your own show, but like. Some of the jokes, I have laughed at the Big Bang Theory before, and you know what? It's not because I laughed at the nerds being nerdy. I'm not like, this, when Sheldon says, this reminds me of an episode of the Flash television program. I'm like, it's more like when, there's interpersonal conflict in a sitcom? Never. But, and then somebody says something dumb. That's when I'm like...
Right.
He's wearing a Green Lantern shirt. I don't know. Like, I wanted to bring up like another, and again, I kind of roped in this whole stigma aspect into Jason's idea about growing out of video games.
And I told you, I definitely feel there is a connection. It's not a far-fetched thing to put the two together.
And the thing I wanted to bring up is that perhaps, dare I say it, deserved stigma for some gamers out there. Because you look at something like the infamous Gamergate. Now, there are people that were sending death threats to journalists because of perceived malfeasance. No. There's perceived abuse of power and connection. Like, somebody sleeps with somebody else, and I'm going to write a slightly better review for a video game that people are going to... And so, what you have is, like... perhaps a bad practice by a single journalist, but what ends up happening is, like, tons of people on the internet are like, death to all gaming journalists, and then that, you get, like, people who, again, a smaller subset of people. It's always, like, the bad actors, right? It's never, like, when I hear, like... I'm disappointed when people are like, "Oh, gamers, they hate women." I'm like, oh, I wish that wasn't like a perception, but I get why you have that perception, because the bad actors out there, some of them are like, and again, it's always a tiny percent, and I feel like a goddamn MAGA hat wearing horse lover, because I'm sitting here like, I'm on my horse and I watch the news, and then I see that my fellow MAGA hat wearing lovers are storming the Capitol, and I'm like, oh, that not my friends and neighbors. That's those are bad people.
Right.
Even though some of them might think similar things to me. Not all men.
Yeah, and it's like, and also there's the connection that that basically no girl plays video games, or if you're a gamer, prepare to never have sex. Prepare to never have like any meaningful relationships at all. And it's so weird, and I just don't get it. And like you said, with the whole thing with bad actors, creating this preconceived view of what gamers are, you can have the same thing for basically any subculture or any fan of anything.
That's true.
Not everybody. We'll use sports as a comparison. So not everybody who watches football every Sunday, is not, a toxic fan who shows up at a game, and hates the players of the other team, or, has a really overdone fantasy draft league, or, like all of the stuff that you can
stereotype about football fans.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're all true. Sorry to just completely disrupt your point.
Right. But it's just like, I don't know. I feel like maybe it doesn't have as much of a reflection, but it's like it's there.
Yeah.
You know?
Not all cyclists are like people that are gonna like. I haven't even ever run into a cyclist because we live in. Okay, finish one sentence first. I've never met a cyclist who is such a huge cycling fan and wears like the whole regalia and then is like, "Oh, you mean you don't bike 26 miles a day? What's wrong with you?"
Right.
Like that. I've heard the stereotype before online, and it's because we don't live in a big city that we don't run into that sort of person, I guess. But perhaps it's because they don't really exist in such large numbers that people say they do, and really the people that like cycling are people that like cycling and not necessarily somebody who has shaved their nipples so that they don't have chafing or whatever. And what I'm getting at is not
Jason,
you know,
I'm shaving my nipples to reduce chafing.
yeah. Oh, it's taping your nipples down. That's
Taping.
it. Yeah,
That's
makes a
man.
lot more sense.
Yeah. And is a lot less painful.
I'm gonna say it. I had my shirt off the other day. Just wearing a shirtless shirt. Johan climbed up me, cut my nipple.
Oh,
It.
God.
Johan is my German roommate. No, Johan, of course, being my 5-month-old kitten, who I treat like a spoiled parent treats a spoiled child. Not a spoiled parent, but like a
doting parent.
Doting, yeah. I'm a helicopter dad. Except, no, I'm not a helicopter. I'm the opposite. I'm like I'm a neglectful dad. Except I love Johan, and I'm always watching him. And in fact, I busted out the old laser pointer for the first time last night. And
So he's never seen one before?
yeah, and of course, like every other cat, he and that's a stereo truth, like our old high school geography teacher once coined. It's that cats love laser pointers, or they're actually perhaps they hate them in the sense that they see an insect that must be killed.
I must defend this home.
Yeah. After I used it for like an hour afterward, he's like just hanging out in the spot that I used it, and he's like waiting for it to come back, I almost felt guilty, like, sorry, buddy. But, I'm not going to sit there and point at the wall all night. And what this has to do with gaming is that not all cats climb you and cut your nipple. So that stigma of being, like I guess that's why, my sister's boyfriend, now ex-boyfriend because he was a gamer.
Obviously.
Yeah. He was like, there's a stigma that all gamers are like lazy and they don't like, they're not gonna be a good boyfriend because he's too busy being a shut-in and like playing Dragon Age 1 and not like going out with his girlfriend for Chinese food or something, So at the end of the day, though, I think that like there's no point in growing out of a hobby that you like.
Exactly.
And if it happens naturally, go for it. But...
Exactly. Yeah. Like we said earlier, a person's tastes for the things they like do change.
Yeah.
Like we were describing earlier, Jeff and I, out of high school, kind of had a resurging interest in comic books.
Yeah.
It's been quite a while since I've read a comic book.
Yeah.
I feel like these things kind of...
They ebb and flow.
Yeah,
I wrote that down
exactly,
earlier, too.
Throughout your life, And yeah, there's definitely been times where I've played games more or played them less. But, if it is a hobby that you like, and if it's, something that, you can use for, stress relief or just to take in a really good story. I mean, gaming offers things for most reasons why you would want to play them.
Yeah.
most gamers can find a game that works for them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't think that in general, I don't think that like growing out of games, I don't think that it necessarily exists, we'll say, not in that way where it's just like, where
Yeah.
it's like simply a thing that, that you will not do after you reach a certain level of maturity.
You hit 25 and you're like, like you said earlier, time to invest in the stock market.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that is a thing.
Right.
Most of the people who, have been gamers or continue to be, I feel like those reasons, are usually fairly unique to them.
That's right.
And, so we definitely, you and I, we have friends who don't play games, as much as they used to because, either they have, a demanding job, other hobbies that have taken higher interest, they have a family. There's all manner of things that can, take you away from that. And it's,
And that's another stereotype, just to cut you off for a second, that gamers will never have families. And
Right.
we mentioned that earlier, didn't we? But, so my apologies, but please continue.
No, we have, and like, there's plenty of people that, that are both gamers that, have families.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's plenty of gamers that, get married to each other,
What?
Yeah.
You mean there's girl gamers out there?
Yes, absolutely there is. They're not all fake, Jeff. They're not all fake Twitch
girl
streamers
gamers.
trying to get your money.
She probably hasn't even played Final Fantasy 9.
Fake. But yeah, so I don't know. I definitely don't think that it's a the concept as you probably will hear it from people. I don't think that's I don't think it's accurate.
Yeah.
If that were to be basically my real kind of thesis, I just don't think it exists,
Yeah. And I agree, Chase.
All right, let's see. It's an hour and 17 minutes. We agree.
Two people just agreeing with each other for an hour.
It's very pleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to. In fact, I asked you earlier, but then I cut myself off and.
Just the conversation, naturally growing the roguelike thing.
Yeah, is that the opposite of what you would consider the ideal game? There's a clock ticking in the back of my mind.
I don't know if I could go as far to say it's the opposite, but it's fairly far removed from what I look for.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, with the stuff of that isn't a JRPG that does not necessarily work for you, that's the stuff that, I can really dig into.
Yeah.
Especially if it is a really gripping story or really gripping world that it takes place in. But with a roguelike, for a roguelike to really get its hooks into me and to basically have any matter of longevity whatsoever, it has to have just a rock solid gameplay loop and also needs to offer me something more than just, hey, you might have this item on the next run.
I love it.
So, like,
just dreaming of that, getting rubber cement for the 5th time so I can unlock Flatstone and unlock the achievement for Flatstone and getting the 1,000,000%.
Exactly.
That is exactly what happened last night.
Nice.
Like maybe when I re-rolled and I saw rubber cement, I'm like, come on, is this the last time? Picked it up, gasped. My cat ran up my body. This time I had my shirt on, and he checked if mine was still breathing because I was like, frozen for a second.
Nice.
And I was like, that is clearly just something I don't do all that often. But
Right.
yeah,
It's an epic gamer moment. But yeah, like, so really, the only roguelike that I've actually been able to even get remotely invested in has been Hades.
yeah, I was thinking that's certainly the best roguelike for you right now.
Exactly, yeah, because it has been able to offer me something more. Because if a game expects me to redo the same thing over and over and over again, it has to give me something more than, well, this item might be better. Come on! Yeah.
I think of playing Isaac somewhat like a crossword puzzle.
Okay.
And you can do a crossword puzzle every day and not get bored, apparently. Looking at you, Mom and Grandma. I see them.
Yeah, I couldn't. I just, for whatever reason, most roguelikes that I've tried, you know, I've put in a few hours, you know, into them.
Yeah.
And it's just, I've not been able to maintain interest.
Right.
With an RPG, you know, after a few hours, you know, you are in a different place than you were when you started. Whether that's in the storyline or your character feels tangibly like stronger than they were beforehand. But with a roguelike, you know, there's so many times where after a run, you know, you can be at the end of it and you're just like, well, there goes a half hour.
The difference being if you win or lose.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I probably would have even stopped playing Hades by now if Techie hadn't also started showing an interest in it and we've started alternating runs. Because now it's turned into a competition. You know? Because after the first time I reached the boss, like the final boss, or what I thought is the final boss, first time I do that and I still, you know, didn't make it, after that I was just thinking to myself, and probably even as I was kind of starting to bang my head up against the wall against the third boss, I was just thinking to myself, I have less and less reason to play this game.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, you know, and, you know, to pivot towards a closure of the episode, I guess, these two genres are what we're planning on doing sub-series on, or spin-offs, you know.
Spin-offs, sub-series. We'll come up with a concrete word for them eventually.
Yeah, Jeffy, or Jeff likes our roguelikes. Jeff likes RPGs, and Jay's roguelikes. Oh my god. Just an alternate universe where, or maybe another spin-off where we drag the other person through.
Kicking and screaming.
Yeah. You drag me through trails of cold steel and
Jeff, I think you're way too good of a friend for me to drag you through trails of cold steel. Like, it's just I love the games, but I can't. In good conscience, I can't make you play them. I would feel terrible.
Yeah. And that's the difference, right? Is that's like 40 hours and like one Isaac run if you're new to the game is like 45 minutes or whatever.
I thought you were going to do something completely different. It's just like, and that's the difference, Jason. Whereas you wouldn't drag me through trails, I will absolutely drag you kicking and screaming across concrete if I must to play Isaac.
You know, it's something that it's an error I have in my brain wiring is, oh shit, I'm a robot. I just realized.
Meet Mark.
Is the error I have is that I occasionally can't. I have to convince myself that it's okay that other people don't like, and not just other people, but my best friends.
Yeah.
Don't like something that I love.
Right,
you know, when I play Isaac, I just told this story to Travis the other day, but like every time I play Isaac now, I think about when I showed Sean down in Chicago, and he got to the third level on normal mode, and he's like, "Does the game get harder?" And and then he stopped playing like 5 minutes later or so when he beat the game. Or the first time he beat the game, it takes about 20 minutes maybe, because the first boss, Mom, is, you know, you got Mom's heart, and then you got Isaac, and then you got Blue Baby. You know, there's so many more bosses later, but he never played it again because he thought it was too easy, and yet this game is the hardest game I've ever beaten.
Yes.
And it's because you know, playing on hard mode with the Keeper or the Lost it's an exercise in patience, and And so every time I play that, I'm like, does the game get harder? Does the game get harder? Oh, wait, does the game get
You've essentially been cursed by it.
Yeah. And like I want to be able to show you Isaac in such a way. I just feel I have this misbelief. That's what it is that that something has to click with someone
And then
and then they'll love it.
Exactly. No, I know that feeling. I know
Yeah.
the feeling of thinking, because there's definitely been an aspect of that where it's, and I've mentioned this a couple of times before, so I'm not going to get too big into the go too far, but I have also had this misbelief for a while that something is eventually going to click with me and I'm suddenly going to like Souls-like
Sure.
games.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I have tried and I
Mhm.
don't.
Yep. And I have to convince myself to not help you get to that clicking point.
Right.
And in fact, I've been one of the reasons you probably believe that it'll click with
Exactly, because I know that it's something
clicked
that you've
with me at
enjoyed.
one
yeah,
point.
but it has to reach this point. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Demon Souls is supposedly the easiest of the Soulsborne games.
so they say.
So maybe that's the one that is gonna kickstart your heart,
Wow. Yeah.
Or maybe you're doomed to not like them.
That's fair. And so I'll just have to be okay with the fact that I'm not a true gamer because I don't like the Souls-like games.
How can somebody who hasn't even beaten Bloodborne have a podcast about video games? What? And this guy hasn't played Trails of Cold Steel. What the heck?
Yeah. Fucking plebeian.
He says he hates JRPGs. Is he like racist or something?
See, but that's the thing. For as much stuff that we agree on,
Mm-hmm.
we still have different tastes, but we can
Yeah,
have that open and honest discussion about it.
yeah, I agree with you, Jason.
I agree with you, Jeff.
I'd hug you, but COVID is real.
Exactly. Yep. This is our second episode now, while still wearing face masks, and
Yeah.
I honestly think the audio has not really suffered too much because of it, so I'm really
No.
happy about that.
Yeah, it's been the masks are a good touch. It's nice and important. Makes me feel better about doing these.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here.
May COVID forever be banned from this earth.
I cast you out.
I broke my hat. No, it just came undone.
No, you were so scared for a minute.
I really was. I paid a lot. Unfortunately, I paid a decent chunk for
For a custom
hat.
Yep. But hey,
He nerded. My
Yeah.
custom hat says Yoshi main spotted because I like to play Yoshi in Smash Brothers.
it's a wonderful
See,
thing.
that self-loathing has not left.
Exactly. No,
I know I said I was going to pivot to the end, but like my parents somehow instilled in me. This is now my therapy session. And Jason, you're a great therapist.
I'm about
by
to say
the
I'm
way.
gonna have to lean back now with my notepad.
Somehow my parents, it's all their fault. They instilled in me that video games are a lesser way to entertain yourself, and if you choose to spend too much time on them, you're wasting your life, and therefore you should feel bad.
Right.
And so I have countered that by playing them too much in order to spite them. And now I've wasted my life. Mom and Dad, you were right all along. Oh, God!
That's very interesting.
What are you writing down?
Big nerd.
All right. With that note, I think it's time to say thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Yep. Sounds good. All right. Everyone having a good next couple weeks. Stay safe out there. We will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.